Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I have my lovely sister here, not biological sister, but my sister in the church, Sister Merlene King.
Hello, hello, hello.
So she is a bookkeeper and she also does tax planning as well. Those are the services that she provides. So we're going to be talking about that today and how you can make sure that your books are, set for the rest of the year. So that way, when you do get to tax time, like you're not stressed out and like trying to make that deadline. You can book a session, a free strategy session, so that you can get your books ready by enlisting in her services, and I will link them as well in this video. So, sis, like to get us started, from your perspective, how did this year's tax season compare to previous years?
I would say, even though I don't prepare taxes for people, however, just getting the books prepared and trying to figure out what the tax laws and deductions and credits were would definitely very stressful for a lot of people. First of all, the tax season normally ends, well, always ends in April, but it was extended to June. And so in other states like Texas and other states that were like, compromised with like weather or severe, things that were happening in those areas, they were extended as well. So, people were just sort of like scrambling, stressed out, trying to figure out, if certain deductions and credits still apply. And, a lot has changed, like a lot has changed within the tax law community. And so, in a lot of companies, we're not operating fully, right? So a lot of things were just like delayed. And so when the tax season came, I think folks were just like stressed for time, trying to figure out like what to do and what's owed, what's not owed, what qualifies and what doesn't qualify.
Okay. And can you tell me like what exactly drew you to bookkeeping? Because I know like there are so many entrepreneurs out there that they don't want to be bothered with it, which is
Right.
why they were in that situation where they were stressed out and scrambling. So like in a C where it's kind of like a lot of people don't want nothing to do with accounting or numbers or bookkeeping, what drew you specifically to bookkeeping?
I think the first thing that drew me to it was the fact that first I was a stay-at-home mother, and so a first-time stay-at-home mom, and so it was very important to me to like maintain a level of sanity, by one keeping I like to stay busy, and so I wanted to like create income for myself and also be able to have the luxury of being able to eventually stay home with my son full time without having to work outside of the home, even though I still work a 9 to 5. However, hopefully this will allow me the opportunity to be able to just work for myself and become self-employed and be able to provide, jobs and income for other people. And I like the fact that owning and operating a bookkeeping business, um, the cost was so low. The cost to just get started with this business is so low, and thank God for Google. You can literally Google everything that you need to know. However, there are courses out there, of course, that can get you to become a certified bookkeeper, to become a tax planner and things like that. But just to get started, to maintain the website, to tell people, obviously Facebook and Instagram and social media, it's free, right, to maintain and to set up and create a page. So I think it was the factor of trying to create my own income, staying home with my son, having financial freedom, and being and like getting started with a business that can generate, um, a substantial amount of income later on in the future as I start to grow. That definitely was appealing to me, and the fact that it was low cost to get started.
Okay, nice. So, like, could you also tell us about like what are two myths that people think about keeping their books maintained or even hiring a bookkeeper?
Two myths that I find. I don't think people realize small businesses or in large business. Well, I think more large businesses do realize it, right? Because obviously at some point you got to where you're going by having like steady financial books, right? So I think sometimes from the people that I've encountered, some past clients that I've encountered, I don't think they value what bookkeeping brings to the table, or they just are not aware that how important it is. I don't know if it's this is they don't value, but maybe they're just not aware of how important having a well maintained book is. Knowing and keeping track of your numbers on a regular basis, how important that is to the growth of your business, over time, and like the importance of having it started from day one, right? So the minute you decide, you know what, I'm going to own and operate a business, I'm going to, first of all, you need to keep track of like the income, no, I'm sorry, the expenses that you're spending to even get and started that business, to even start that business. Cause that right there, that's, you know, that can be deductible depending on what your expenses are. So another myth is that bookkeeping may be too expensive. And the reality is it could be expensive depending on where you live, location, depending on, you know, what exactly do you need as far as, you know, like what are you, like, what type of business are you? I mean, if somebody's making, you know, they just started out at making $1,000 a month, I'm not going to charge you $500 a month. Like that's ridiculous, right? If somebody is making $1 million a month, you can afford to pay me $1,000 a month to maintain your books. You know what I mean? Like that's fair. So I think people sometimes probably think, well, it's too expensive, or I could do it myself. Yes, you can do it yourself. However, as your business grow, that's the least of, you just don't have the time. You know, most likely you won't have the time to really sit there to calculate everything. Even if you use a software, an accounting software, to maintain your books for you, you still need to know what your numbers are. You still need to know how to read the statements and how to calculate the, you know, the numbers that you're getting and how you're even arriving to those numbers.
Okay. So so it would make sense to definitely charge more for someone that's making like $1 million because they have like, you know, a lot of more expenses and like more
Definitely.
things that you have to track and things of that nature. So um that's definitely like a good thing, you know,
Yeah.
to weigh in when
Right.
considering that. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so could you tell us a little bit more about like the deductions and how is that calculated, especially for someone that may not, know how to like keep track of their expenses and what's coming in, their income?
Hmm. Um, So, I mean, there obviously are, well, I would say there's two main ways, right, to keep track of your income and expenses, and your deductions. The deductions, not most people don't realize that, you know, there are certain things you can deduct. So, for example, you, Sister Monique, you're a freelancer, you're working from home, you know, let's say you have a little corner in, like, you know, your dining room that you have specifically set up as like your office space. No one sits there, it's just you. You're not using it to eat, to do arts and crafts. You're not using it to, you know, do church related things. You're using it specifically for your business. That little corner in your home that you consider to be your home office is considered a tax deduction, right? Buying supplies, for your job, updating your website would be a tax deduction, whatever like expenses you use for that. Buying a new camera so you can take pictures of your work and your, you know, your clients and things like that, those are considered tax deductions. So a lot of times that's where the bookkeeper really comes in and be able to say, hey, you know, these are all deductions that you can use to reduce your tax liability at the end of the tax year. So the
Wow.
whole purpose of deductions is to reduce the amount of money you pay at the end of the year. And of course, people, you know, are not going in thinking about, oh, you know, I buy camera equipment, or I need to buy a new, lens. I need to buy a new lens every, you know, for so often because I'm getting all these different type of jobs and it requires me to take these different shots. I don't know, I'm not a photographer, but, you know, I'm assuming there's like little things you may need to buy in order to improve the quality of your work, right? Let's say if you were a photographer. And so this is where, and a bookkeeper comes in and helping you to see what you qualify for and how to maintain those. Now going back to maintaining, so if you're just starting out, I don't recommend that you hire a bookkeeper right away. But I do recommend that maybe you call a bookkeeper, your local bookkeeper. Maybe you talk to your tax account, the person who does your tax. If they have a moment, you know, maybe they have an in-house bookkeeper. You can sit down and just talk to them and figure out like, how do I manage, you know, my income and your expenses? Those are the two main things that you're first tracking, and everything else you can track later, because it is a lot to track. So people, I think a lot of time, another myth is that people think it's just you're tracking your income and your expenses and that's it. But there's a lot more to track. There's assets. There's, you know, liabilities, depreciation. There's so many things we ain't gonna get into, but that's a whole nother, like, you know, topic. But so one of the ways you can do it if you're just starting out is just simply using an Excel spreadsheet, right? So you're tracking in how much income is coming in, how much income is going out. And if you want to be really detailed is with the income, who is the income coming from? Where is the income coming from? How are you getting that income, right? So if you're a photographer, you're getting it from client X, you're getting it from client Y. How are they paying you? They are paying you cash, or they are paying you, using, what's that thing called? The little thing that people carry now to just swipe their card. I don't know, but like the
I don't know.
e-reader.
Oh,
You
is
know,
it like a Square
yeah,
reader?
yeah, there you go, Square. Thank you. So they're carrying like Square or whatever. There's so many different apps out there I cannot keep track.
Yes.
That right, right. So those are the things. Now, if you really want to get detailed about your income, you can say, you can now break it down even further, right? So you notice that during the summertime, maybe you're doing more, maybe you're getting more income because there's graduations, there's birthday parties, there's what else? Baby showers, there's Easter. We don't celebrate Easter, but there's all these there's all these things that you may be present, to take pictures of, right? And then with your expenses, same thing. What are you spending your money on? First things first, separate your personal from your business. That's like the number one rule of starting and owning and operating a successful business is to separate your personal from your business. Keep that separate. That's a whole nother, topic that sometimes I'm just like, why are you still commingling these funds when they're completely separate, And so the expenses and why it's important to track is if not tracked properly, you're going to be missing out on deductions, right? If it's one, it's not separated, right? At the end of the year, you're gonna be like, wait, what's this receipt for? What is this? Did I take my son out to eat, or did I take Sister Mo, my photographer, out to eat? You know what I mean? So it's like you're trying to figure out what are these, and it's like at the end of the day, you need to have a system in place. So again, if you're using the Excel spreadsheet, try to be as detailed as possible. File your receipts, find a folder, put it in a folder, separate them by category. If you're using an accounting software, for example, which the one that I like to use is called QuickBooks Online. I'm a pro advisor, so I can also provide people training on how to, just get started with a basic account. And eventually, as their business grow, they can just allow me to, give me the accounting, I guess the account, what is it called? I guess like the accounting access to their account to be able to become their bookkeeper in a sense. So for example, you have QuickBooks, which is very popular. And then you have Xero, which is Xero, which a lot of people use as well. But I like QuickBooks. I was first introduced to QuickBooks when I was doing my research, trying to figure out what I wanted to use. And so QuickBooks just seemed like the most popular. It just worked. I started using it. I haven't stopped using it since, and I refuse to use any other. But if I had a customer that used something else, I'm sure I can figure it out because they all pretty much mimic each other, right? And so if you have an accounting software, a lot of times they do, well, not a lot of times, they do come with like instructions on how to use it. So it depends. Are you pen and paper, or are you, a software type of person? But you have to keep track of it, period. There's no way around it. Not if you don't, if you want the IRS to come after you and say, hey, you owe us this and you owe us that, and we don't get this, we don't get that, then that's on you. I won't be your bookkeeper though.
Yeah, like I was never there.
I'm gonna leave you alone. I'm gonna leave you alone.
Walk me through the process of if somebody is in this situation where like their receipts are all over the place, they don't know what's what is the process that they can walk through in order to get on track?
So I'll use my first client. So my first client, who was a childcare owner, an in-home childcare owner, and she had receipts in bags. Oh, and this was like 2000. This was like what? This was 2019. She had papers in bags and folders and all over the place and in shoe boxes. I thought that was a joke. And I really thought it was a joke when she said, yeah. I thought I was like in a Twilight Zone, because I was like, really, we still do that? Because nowadays we have cell phones where we can snap a picture, send it to Dropbox, send it to Google Sheets, send it to wherever, somewhere in the cloud somewhere, and find it later. So So that's the first thing. The first thing is let's get those papers out of the shoebox and let's sit down. Let's sort them out together. And by the way, there's a fee for this. It's a
Yes, because
hefty
that
fee.
sounds really stressful.
Yeah, no, it was. It was. It's a hefty fee. But good thing for someone like that or a business like that, most times the expenses and the incomes are pretty much the same, right? They don't really vary too much. So that makes it a little bit easier to manage when you have someone who doesn't have like an online accounting system and it's all paper. With this particular client, for example, she had both.
Oh,
She had both online and both paper, and it was very confusing. So with that particular client, of course, we had to create an Excel spreadsheet, and we had to literally, go line by line. Thank God it was only a year. I told her I would only go back a year, and we ain't going back further than that because it's a lot. It's a
mhm.
lot. So we did the year, and we basically went through and tracked everything month by month, right? So each receipt correlated with the bank statements that she was using, the credit card statements that she was using, because at the end of the day, you need to be able to show like the proof. It's not just, well, here's this little receipt, and then that's it. Like you need to be able to show, well, okay, right, let me not get into that, but you need to be able to show proof that you spent this and this income came in. And so with a client like that, the goal is to always like get them organized immediately and get them to see the importance of having the documents that organized and like put somewhere safely. So in case you do get audited a year, 7 years from now, you have these things handy. So yeah, you can keep your physical copy somewhere, where it's in a dry place, where it's not, going to be attracting moisture, so the ink doesn't roll off or something, things like that. And scan it into your computer, scan it into a Dropbox file, scan it into Google, scan it somewhere so you have that paper copy. And then the next step would be, once we get that, is to like set up your accounting system. So again, I only use QuickBooks, but if a client came in using something else, I can still plug them into my QuickBooks account without them having like a full account, which that's a whole other thing. But so that's the first thing, is just to get those papers organized. The second thing is to create like the accounting system. The third thing would be to like I lost my train of thought, but the third thing would be to figure out where the income is coming from, and how consistent is it, and also and the expenses, like, right, figure out where they're coming from, how consistent is it, and also the final thing would be to like increase it. Can we increase, not the final, but would be to increase, how to increase your income. And also the other thing is how to decrease some of these expenses, because a lot of times you may forget that you are subscribed to, I don't know, to some magazine.
Canva.
Yeah, Canva, right? And you barely use Canva. Maybe you use it like once a month, or you don't really know how to use it, or you bought Canva because you thought it was, so popular because everybody else is using Canva and they tell you how great it is. So you subscribe, but you barely use it. We're wasting $12 a month, right? Like, let's get rid of that. Maybe we can revisit Canva another time. So part of my process for onboarding a new client is going through like literally everything. What can we, and it's a gradual process, right? Because I'm getting to know you, you're getting to know me, I'm getting to know your income habits, your spending habits in the business. I'm getting to know, a lot of times I'm getting to know your business, right? Because I'm
Mhm.
not a photographer, for example, so I don't know what that entails and what needs to be done in that type of business. I could do my little Google research, but Google ain't going to give me your personal experience, right, in your own business. So it's really just getting to know your business, your process, and how you want to do things. I have my way of doing things, but obviously people have their way of doing things. I've met like this other person who wanted me to come to his office and to do his bookkeeping the old way, pen and paper and a ledger book. Mm-mm, we ain't doing that.
Yeah, that sounds kind of
We ain't doing
sketchy.
that. Yeah, well, no, no, no. I was like, listen, sir, I would love to do your books and work in your business, but the pen and paper, we ain't doing that. So, that was not a best client for me. But
Right.
yeah, that's my, I guess, steps to for a new client.
Okay, yeah, and because a lot of people don't even realize that bookkeepers are really, there to make sure to make a flow of more income to come in. So they just kind of think like,
There you
oh, they
go.
just track my income and my expenses and that's it. But bookkeepers are here to make sure that you can make more money and you can actually save money on like
Right,
whatever expenses that you're doing. So that's a really good
right,
thing. So like when
right.
I just want to touch on a little bit like what are the particular documents that you have to show proof? Like, is it like a credit card statement or a card statement or like some sort of receipt from the actual company that you had the expense for?
Right. Yeah, all of the above. Ding, ding, ding. Like,
Okay.
good job. So no, definitely receipts. Receipts. Keep your receipts. Date your receipts. Mark. Let's say I took you out to eat, Sister Mo. I took Sister Mo out to eat on this day. Maybe the time is not, the time is irrelevant, right? But what did I take you out for, right? That I took you out to, so we can talk about this photography shoot that we're about to have, right?
Mhm.
So you want to make sure those things are written down somewhere and that you can go back. And so if the IRS ever comes and says, hey, what is this, $50 that you spent on like lunch, what, or $100 that you spent on lunch and you tip somebody 50, like, what is this, so you can say, oh yeah, I took out, my friend, and we had dinner and we were talking about business, not personal, business. Again, we got to keep that stuff separate. So receipts, any documents where concerning invoices, so people that you have billed, and you have billed for whatever work you do, and invoices that you need to pay, you need to keep. So for example, if you own a daycare, if you're like a daycare provider, for example, to be a little bit more specific and into my niche, for example, you would keep medical records, you would keep attendance sheets, you would keep what else? Attendance records, medical sheets. You would keep just like a little profile of like the children and their family, and you want to keep like them basically separated from the year that they were in your center, in your childcare center, right? So that's how you would maintain some of those documents. But you just want to try to keep track of everything, and make sure you have your documents in place to back it up.
Okay.
And yes, yeah, bank statements and credit card statements, of course, are the you know yeah.
And the accounting software you use, QuickBooks, like, are you able to like? Can you just tell me about that? Like how you're able to just like drop the documents in and like
Oh
keep
yeah,
track of
sure.
everything?
Oh yeah, that's a whole training, but we can talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yes, yes. So QuickBooks, I love it. I think they need to hire me and pay me, period, right? So
Yes,
QuickBooks,
influencing.
yes, yes, there you go. So QuickBooks, again, it's an accounting cloud software, right? So what you do is, you set up your account, and then so you don't need to be an accountant or a bookkeeper to have an access to QuickBooks. You just have to own a business, and it's relatively cheap, I would say, or it's not costly. It's not expensive to have an account with them. So I think they are changing their prices as of June 15th, but don't quote me, but their prices will be changing. I think this month. And so let's just say, having a simple account, a simple start, or having like the self-employed one, right? It could cost you like $12 to $15 a month. That's pretty low. And so what you do is you sign up, you put your information of your business, your EIN number, which is like your social security number for your business, so you put these things in there. And then after that, you go in and you link your account to your bank account, your business bank account. Again, keeping business and personal separate. So you plug in your checking account, your checking debit account, all that stuff into QuickBooks. Once that stuff is plugged in, then you will be able to get at least 90 days worth of your back, of your income, your expenses, any transactions basically that you have had are gonna just auto populate into the system, automatically upload into the system. And so you have to like, for example, Chase, which I personally am not a fan of Chase for my own personal reasons, but a lot of my clients have Chase. And Chase seems to be working very well with QuickBooks. Like I've had no issues with it. So basically what I'm saying is that, like for example, Bank of America, not to shame any banks out there, but Bank of America, there's been like issues and glitches with QuickBooks, but you can like reach out to them, let them know, hey, my bank doesn't seem to be syncing well with your thing. And they're working on allowing more banks to sync into their software. So I think Bank of America now is like working with them better, but there's some banks that just doesn't do well with them at all. Like they're just not signed up and not hip and not part of the system. So it doesn't work. But so once your account is up, you'll literally be able to create like a chart of account, which basically like categorizes all your income or your expenses and things like that. And you'll be able to you'll be able to go in and match your transactions to you'll be able to match your transactions basically and have them categorized. And every month or every quarter or every week, whatever you want to do, you go in and you reconcile, which is basically meaning like, you do like a check and balances, you close out your account, you're able to print out your statements, whenever you need to give your statements to a bank or to a lender or, for whatever, to file your taxes, you can go in and print those things out and have them whenever you want to. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. So I guess this is a really good transition into the quarterly estimated taxes. So
Yeah.
can you tell us about that and like why you feel if everyone should do that?
Yeah, so the estimated quarterly taxes is basically quarterly taxes that you pay to the government or money you pay to the government, and that's basically what it is. And so if you are, um, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're not having enough taxes being withheld from the income that you are bringing in, then the government is saying, well, you still owe us money and you need to pay us. Now, the reason why you should not wait till the end of the year to pay your estimated quarterly taxes or your taxes in general, right, is that you're going to have this like huge hefty bill at the end of the year. So let's say you are making $10,000, right, and you are, so no, I'm sorry. Let's say you have to pay $10,000 at the end of the year with, do you, if you don't have $10,000 saved, now you're gonna have an issue. But if hey, at the end of the year, most likely I'm gonna pay $10,000 by the end of the year. Why not just pay the 2,500 every quarter, right? Every quarter, just pay that, just so you don't have this like hefty bill by the end of the year. And that's why the quarterly taxes is important to stay on top of it. And it also keeps you accountable because now you have no choice but to stay on top of your books, right? Because that will help you to understand like, okay, how much money is coming in, how much is going out, what do I need to reduce different things, and and from that statement alone, every single quarter you'll be able to generate, this is how much money I made, this is how much I owe Uncle Sam.
Okay.
But not every businesses have to pay quarterly taxes, right? So the businesses that do pay are folks who are like self-employed, freelancers, people, gig workers now is a very popular thing, especially since the pandemic. So Uber drivers, people who do DoorDash, right? Those are considered gig workers, and those folks clearly, Uber is not withholding taxes from your from the income that you're bringing in. And so those money, Uncle Sam wants part of it. And so, you have to pay it. Yeah.
Like, even if it's like significantly small, like it's not even up there like with the big dogs or anything like that.
Even if you find $1 on the floor, technically you need to be claiming that on your taxes. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So where can everybody find you?
Oh, sure. So I can be found at online, Instagram and Facebook at Bookkeeping Coach LLC. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Bookkeeping Coach LLC. I don't have a website at the moment, so so Facebook and Instagram is definitely the place to find me.
Okay, wonderful. And yes, again, I definitely will link the consultation link um,
Yes.
somewhere around this video if you know you need help and you want to make sure that your books are on track, because it's good to be early than to be late.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here, Sister Marlene. This was a
Thank you so
really
much.
fun interview.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, sis.